Space is infinite. 93 million miles to the nearest sun. 200 million billion to the center of our galaxy alone. 100 billion galaxies. Space is infinite. And an infinity of suns is being born inside it. And an infinity is dying away, glowing red and blue and gold and white against the endless night. And yet, only one thing flashes silver as it soars through the infinite light. A being. A single, solitary being. Finally, free. Hello, and welcome to Norrin Reads. In episode 1, I will be reviewing Silver Surfer number 1 from the 1987 series. This was written by Steve Englehart, penciled and colored by Marshall Rogers, and inked by Joel Rubinstein. So issue 1 sees the Surfer still trapped on Earth by Galactus. He's attempting to free himself, and he is actually tearing a hole in the ozone layer. This catches the attention of the Fantastic Four. They arrive and they question Norrin about what he's doing, and they let him know that the ozone's being torn apart, and he lets them know it was him. He's unaware that the radiation he's letting in by tearing through the ozone is actually going to harm people. So while they're discussing this, Champion shows up and slams Surfer into the ground, and he begins to attack him. The Thing recognizes Champion from previous issues of the Fantastic Four and other books, where the Thing and other champions of Earth actually fought the Champion in a contest of strength, and the Champion won. Now, Surfer is confused as to why the Champion is attacking him, and the Champion doesn't want to offer a response because he's above the Surfer and he doesn't need to explain himself. So they begin to fight, and the Surfer is reluctant to fight him at first, but the Surfer is always willing to fight when he has to. Eventually he knocks the Champion unconscious, and because he's lost to the Surfer, the Champion offers an answer to the Surfer's question about why he's there to kill him. And it's because he doesn't want the Surfer to interfere with something that's happening with Galactus, the Krees, and the Skrull. Now, the Krees and the Skrull have had a war going on between them for a millennia. The Skrulls are shapeshifters, and the Kree are humanoids. They don't have any shapeshifting abilities, but the two species have been at war, and a weapon was used, some kind of genetic bomb that froze the Skrull in place, whatever form they had at the time whenever this bomb was detonated. So they are afraid that the Kree are going to overrun and destroy them now because their main weapon, which is their shape-shifting ability, is taken away from them. Now, they have kidnapped Frankie Ray, Nova, the second herald to Galactus, and they're holding her prisoner, and they want to blackmail Galactus into destroying Kree worlds. So that's where Champion and the Surfer sort of enter into the story. The Champion, for whatever reason, he doesn't want the Surfer stopping the Skrull's plan. So after being defeated by the Surfer, he leaves pretty quickly. Then Reed and the Surfer begin to discuss another tactic for getting the Surfer out of Earth's captivity and through the barrier that Galactus has placed there for him. They run through all the different times that they've tried to get the Surfer out, all the different methods they used, and how they were all a failure. While they're having this discussion, Ben Grimm, the Thing, hears them, and he asks the question if they've ever tried to get the Surfer out of the atmosphere, or out of the barrier, rather, without the Surfer's board attached to him, because the Surfer always has been riding the board. It's part of him, and it's part of his power cosmic. They're kind of one being almost. So Ben kind of dismisses this idea. He's like, oh, well, I just thought of this, and you guys are the smart guys, so it's probably not anything. But Reed, he latches onto the idea, the Surfer as well, and they're like, well, we have to try it. So they go and get the Fantastic Four's rocket ship, and they put the Surfer on board, and they fly towards the barrier, and what do you know, it works. And the Surfer exits the ship, he calls his board back to him, and he is free from Earth's barrier. And Silver Surfer says he's going to go talk to Galactus. And She-Hulk is wondering why he would do that. She says, I would get as far away from Galactus as I possibly could. And he says, and this is something I really appreciate, he says, well, if I just run away, I will never actually be free. I need to go talk to Galactus and really make a bargain that will truly give me my freedom. That part really struck me because I really appreciate that about the Surfer. He has a lot to offer as far as a role model for behavior, and I think that that is a really good example of that. He leaves to go talk to Galactus. He finds him. He explains to Galactus what's going on, makes the deal with Galactus that, he's willing to save Frankie Ray, but he wants his freedom. He doesn't want any trouble between him and Galactus anymore. He kind of wants the slate wiped clean. Galactus agrees to it because it seems as though he has a human care for Frankie Ray, Nova, which really catches the Silver Surfer's attention. He sees that Galactus sort of thinks of Frankie Ray as a woman, almost, which is not really how Galactus has been known to function, so that kind of catches his attention. Galactus breaks down the security that the Skrulls have for keeping Frankie Ray, Nova, contained, and the Surfer basically devises a plan how he's going to get her out. And so he flies down to the planet, and there's this great sequence in the book where it's sort of first-person POV. Well, not first-person, it's sort of a POV. From behind Surfer's legs, you can see the board in front of him, and it's this great page of five or so panels of the Surfer flying down to the surface, and then he crashes through the walls of this prison, I guess, that they have built for Frankie Ray, and he does it so quickly that he doesn't actually activate any of the security that they have in place, all those explosives. He's fast enough to where he can get in, get Frankie Ray, get out, and by the time he gets out, only then have the sensors been set off and actually explode. He saves her, she's alive, and that was part of the bargain, that if she made it out alive, Galactus would hold up his end of the deal. He also warned the Surfer that if Frankie Ray did not survive, Surfer wouldn't last much longer, and his last moments would be of suffering. So, needless to say, Surfer is relieved when Frankie Ray has survived this ordeal. So, she says something interesting after she's rescued, which I thought was another moment that I wanted to point out. She mentions that she is in scalding, searing pain, and it couldn't damage her physically because she's imbued with the power cosmic, but it was still very painful. They had her in this tank of liquid that, because of her powers being designed to work in the vacuum of space, her flame powers, that when she was in this liquid tank, these flames were thrown back at her. So she was essentially being burned by her own power, unable to stop it, unable to die, and in constant pain. So a pretty terrible state to be in. So she mentions this to the Surfer about the pain she was in, and he says, "Time will diminish both pain and memory, Frankie Ray." And again, I feel like that's a profound moment from the Surfer, and those are the moments I look for reading the Surfer, because at his core I believe he's a philosophical character, and the philosophical moments of the Surfer books are the moments that I enjoy the most and I get the most out of. So let's move on. When Surfer says, "Time will diminish both pain and memory," Galactus says, well, not the memory of Galactus. And if we recall, the Skrull wanted him to destroy Kree worlds. Essentially, they wanted him to destroy 1,000 Kree worlds. Now that this has happened and he's retrieved Nova with the Surfer's help, Galactus says, oh, well, I will destroy 1,000 worlds, but there'll be 1,000 Skrull worlds. The Surfer immediately pipes up and he tells Galactus, "No, Mighty One, it must not be." And of course, Galactus is offended at the fact that the Surfer would question him. And he's, basically, he's this cosmic being. He is who he is. And he doesn't worry about having a conscience. He says, "Conscience destroys the will. The Skrulls would sneer at you for conscience, no less than I." And here's another great Silver Surfer moment that I really appreciate. He says, "It matters not what others do. The Silver Surfer must be true to himself." Again, another great message from the Silver Surfer about being an individual and thinking for yourself. One of the great things I love about Silver Surfer, and one that it seems that most of the writers have been able to maintain. So he tells this to Galactus, and he explains, "Galactus, you are this cosmic being, and you are not with emotion. You're not supposed to be an emotional creature. You maintain the cosmic balance of things. You can't be blamed for consuming planets because it is in your nature, it is your purpose in this reality. And if you decide to go destroy these Skrull worlds out of emotion, well, you will no longer be what you are, a cosmic force to maintain balance and order." And Galactus understands that. He agrees with the Surfer. He tells him, "Your words have the ring of truth." And so Galactus will keep to his preordained course and pardon those who attacked my herald. And Galactus will pardon you. So he lifts the barrier from Surfer and Earth, allowing him to travel freely between the two, and this seems to sort of solve the problem between Surfer and Galactus. And at the end, Surfer says he's free, and he soars off into the cosmos as the words trail into the distance following the silver streak of his board. Free. So as far as an introduction to a new Silver Surfer series, I feel like this is a good one, and what I really appreciate about it is the writer getting him off of Earth. While I can appreciate the Silver Surfer's commentary on Earthlings, I feel that you can only do that for so long before it gets a bit stale, and with a character as mobile and as powerful as the Silver Surfer, I really feel that by limiting him to Earth, you severely limit yourself to story. It's sort of like a DS9 series where it's a space station, Star Trek DS9. It's a space station and all the adventure has to come to you. Whereas if you're riding off in the Enterprise, like Star Trek Original Series or Next Generation, if you're soaring through the galaxies and the cosmos, finding new and interesting things, well, the potential for storytelling and for fantastical adventures is greatly expanded. And that's really where I think the Surfer shines. So, thank you for listening to this first episode of me reviewing the Silver Surfer series. That's a lot to say, Silver Surfer series. I'm a huge fan of the Silver Surfer. He's my favorite comic book character, and I'm really thrilled to own the entire run and to be able to read them and share my thoughts with you. So thank you again. We'll see you out there on the cosmic spaceways.